Sound speeding.
Take two.
First, was it Etc. or was it ETC?
Yeah, I was in a band called Etc. Actually, I was in a band before that called Organized Confusion. We put out 7 records.
7.
Yes, and I'm not lying. It feels like I'm lying when I say it, but in fact, we put out 7 records, including Organized Confusion, Anthology of Retarded Apes, Water Fountains, and several others. All on cassette. Each record was an hour long. We only made 1 copy of each and then a safety copy, and so the distribution was we would hand it to people and say, when you're tired of this, give it to somebody else. So that career didn't work out. Yeah, I mean, radio was crucial, and I listened to it nonstop growing up. There was a lot of cool radio in Knoxville, and you could call up and get on there, you know. So in junior high, we used to call up WKGN, and they would let you talk about whatever you wanted to. I would quote Frank Zappa lyrics or something, you know, pretend they were mine. And plagiarism, it's a great way to get started. In the early 80s, the thought of a local band being on radio was absurd, though we were just stupid enough to think we could pull it off. And we didn't know that they were never going to play it. We just, you know, they would give you some excuse, but they weren't interested in something local. I mean, why would you play something local on a local radio station? But they did have a Battle of the Bands, 104. And they decided, because we had pestered them so much, they would have a punk rock night in the Battle of the Bands. And so whoever won the punk rock Battle Royale would go on to play the Southern Rock night winner. But the Real Hostages beat out the other 2. And then we went on to get like totally slaughtered by the Lynyrd Skynyrd cover band. And also, it got me fired from my job as well. I was working at Regus I was senior busboy. I didn't think first of all, we would win the punk night. I thought the Five Twins would take it because they were better, and they had better songs, and they looked much nicer than us. I didn't ask off for the next night because I knew we wouldn't make it, right? Well, we made it. And then I was like, so I called into Regus, and it was a UT Alabama game. And I called in, I'm not feeling so good. And they're like, oh, don't come in if you're sick. We don't want you spreading that around. And then I came in the next day, and they said, we heard your name of your band on the radio. You're fired, punk rocker. And I was like, oh, man, I really needed this job. And they, well, you lied, punk rocker. And they kept saying punk rocker to me. And then I was kind of got a little proud. You know, like, yeah, well, this punk rocker's gonna go work at Red Lobster, so to heck with you. The Real Hostages finished what they were doing in mid-1982, and then Smokin' Dave immediately formed with several of the Real Hostages in August of 1982. I wasn't familiar with Album 90 at all, but when they became WUTK, they had a marketing campaign, and I was in the communications department, so I was right there. And I just went down there to like, I want to work here. And there was a guy named Tom Rutledge, the late great Tom Rutledge, and he was, just asking me all these questions about my musical taste. And at that time, though, they were playing. It was like this mixed format, like it was half smooth jazz, and then like half sort of college rock. I mean, I know that REM went down there for an interview in that period. That would have been November of '82. So the first thing I did at WUTK was just a shift. And the shift had all sorts of rules. It was a cart system, and like you can play this, 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 and this. In my opinion, there were only a few things I was actually excited about playing, including Jason and the Scorchers. And I would be like, if Lee had been on the air before me, I knew it was like, damn, he'd already played Jason the Scorchers, so I can't play it. But that's what I did for a while. And then also I was a journalism major, so I asked my advisor if I could do my practicum. I had to do 2 practicums in journalism. So they said, you want to do it at WUTK? I went, yes, I do. It's fun down there. It's good. I had to do a second practicum, and I said, I'd like to do my second practicum at WUTK. And they're like, really? Do you really want to don't you want to go to like a real radio station? I said, like what? And they're like, WIVK? And I said, I don't have a car. And they said, okay, UTK it is. I'd been there long enough and just pestered Steve, the graduate assistant, long enough till he's like, yeah, okay, you can be music director already. And then so I was music director, and I was like, well, what does that mean? You know? And he says, well, it means, you know, you direct how the programming goes. Ethically, I would say you probably shouldn't program your own band, and if someone else wants to play it, that's fine. However, I lack those particular ethics, and I did feel that Smokin' Dave and the Primo Dopes was a good band, that I would play them if I were not in it. So I went down with my guitar and I recorded a song directly to Cart. And then I just said, this is Smokin' Dave and the Primo Dopes, even though the band's not on it. And then I programmed that in heavy rotation. Lo and behold, more people started coming to the shows. I also, though, felt like any local band at all should get played no matter what it sounds like. So any local band that brought music, it just went into rotation. Not just got on a locals only show kind of thing, but it was in rotation regularly. So I went out with some friends one night, and I was like, you know, they're playing smooth jazz like half the day, and a lot of the music they're playing is kind of, it's not bad, but it's not what most college stations are playing. So I can't remember, someone said, well, you should just go tell them you want to change the format. I was like, you can't do that. And they're like, why can't you do that? And I was like, well, I'll go try. So I just went up to Steve the next day and said, Steve, I think we ought to change the format to what all the college rock stations are doing. And he goes, you'll have to write it up as a proposal. And I went, yeah, I was gonna I've already started working on it. He's like, yeah, I've got to have it in writing. You just can't like do that, like just say it. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, damn, this might actually happen. So I went home on my little GE typewriter and wrote a proposal saying I want, exactly what I want to do. Didn't give it much thought. No more smooth jazz, more local programming, indie college rock, basically, and then specialty shows, which we were already doing. Way before I got there were reggae shows with The Dan, a real Jamaican, and Greg McMurray and all these people. So I went there and gave him the piece of paper the next day. He went, okay, start on Monday, changing the format. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But then we started doing more interviews and things like that in that period. That's when the Minutemen came in, Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies. It was all surreal. It was all surreal. And that was the sort of the magic of that period, just everything seemed to work. Everybody seemed to be on the same side. Everybody seemed to be heading in the same direction. It was sort of a revolution and a rebellion. And I think that was part of the glue. There was an unbelievable amount of positive belief in what we were doing, or what was possible. After I graduated, which was even more amazing than getting to be the music director, it was just as shocking as the format changed and everything. I just went back to fandom. I just listened to the station all the time, and I think WUTK was so instrumental for local bands because we knew if we could get our craft together enough to record a song or two, there was a place that they would actually play it. So it was very inspirational, I think, for a lot of us to actually make a record.